Welcome to Watch This with Dennis, and we are back with the Saturday live stream. Hopefully, this one is interesting for you. I'm going to try to do something different or different-ish. I haven't done this in a while, and we are going to do watch tots or this or that. So I don't think I've done this since 2023, but just so for some background, I said, oh my gosh, months ago that I would get a panel together and we would play a game regarding, and this is what I was thinking of, but regarding Watches and Wonders, the new novelties, the releases for 2025. Now, you might remember that Watches and Wonders 2025 in Geneva was back in April, like right at the start of April. But I just kept putting it off. Yeah, I had COVID, I had work trips, and then I just didn't feel like it. I don't do the panels during this time of day. I have to find a time where normal people can get online. And so I never did any of it and thus failed all of you. So we're going to kind of do it, but we're going to do it a little bit differently since I'm doing it at my usual stream time. I didn't dare try and put a panel together. So instead, the live chat will be the ones that play. And I've often integrated them into the game, but let me go ahead and explain how the game works for folks. So it's pretty simple. I had to research how to do polls on YouTube Live because it's been so long since I've done them. But I will be able to do it. It looks like so I've got the stuff pre-printed. It'll just take me some time because I actually have to construct them live. So here's how it works. I'll put up an image of two matchups. They're not necessarily two watches. There could be a combination of watches. You'll see what I mean when we go along. But there'll be a this and there'll be a that. And it's pretty simple. I've got a summary. You'll see some summary information about the watch, a picture of the watch on the screen. Pricing is generally the unifying factor. So I try and put matchups together of very similar price points, not identical price points, but very similar. Basic specs of the watch, features of the watch, and the movements of the watch are also going to appear on the screen. You'll see in sort of a little breakdown. And then I'll have a conversation with you all about, my thoughts between these two models. And if I had to pick one that I was going to get, which one I would get and why. And the poll is going to let you guys actually, mathematically be measured in terms of which one you would pick. And then the results will appear in the chat and I'll be able to say those and we'll see if we're all in agreement or if I'm wrong and you guys are right. No, you guys would be wrong and I will be right, of course. But that's how it basically works. And I've got 4 of them that we'll go ahead and do. So it's pretty straightforward, I think. But before that, housekeeping items to get out of the way. I did actually have a pre-recorded video that came out after the last episode. I'll put a link in the chat, but I finally put out my 2025 State of the Collection video. This one, I think I had to edit, as in render, I should say, maybe a half dozen times. I kept finding mistakes. It's common to find mistakes. And obviously on the live stream, I can't go back and fix those. So you learn to live with them. But on the pre-recorded stuff, I kept saying 2026 was the biggest problem. And I'd go along and I'd realize I said it. So I'd have to edit the audio or I'd have to either to strip it out or to redub myself. It was just a lot of those little errors all throughout because while doing it, I kept thinking about the video for 2026 about what I most wore over the last year, and it just kept confusing me. So price to be paid when you're sitting there for 30 minutes just going through watches, or technically more than 30. The final version is over 30 minutes. I do have timestamps, though, so you can just jump to the watches that you are interested in, because I do have about 20 that I go over. On the wrist today is actually, of course, one of those 20. This is the Zenith Chronomaster Original, my one and only mechanical chronograph that I own. And before we get started with the game, let me go ahead and greet the chat. Brent, good morning. Hope things are going well for you. Kevin as well, out in Florida. Hope things are great out there. And Underachieving Watch Collector, greetings to you as well. Okay. And Tuna, thank you for being a 99 Cent Club member. Hello. Hope you are having a really good day. All right. So first things first, we got to go ahead and I got to start building this tot for you guys to be able to vote on. But first, I'm gonna take my face away for a while so you can see everything. But first things first, I've got, again, now the pricing, let me go ahead and note something about the pricing. I have updated pricing so that it actually is the price today. Like I tried to go to the websites, or if the website didn't say what the price was, I try and find a retailer. I think I was able to in all instances. And so that the prices that were originally advertised in many cases for the United States are no longer the right prices. So that's the way it is. But um, so here's your first matchup. So watch tot number one is, would you take this, the Nomos Club Sport Neomatic World Timer, or that, the Tudor Black Bay Pro, the Opaline edition, because that's the new one that came out in 2025. So pricing, they're close. The Nomos is more. MSRP is just under $5,200, whereas the Black Bay Pro MSRP is just over $4,700. Both of these are the bracelet editions that you're looking at. Diameter of the Nomos is a 40 millimeter watch with 9.9 millimeters of thickness and 100 meters of water resistance, whereas the Black Bay Pro is 200 meters of water resistance. It's a smaller diameter at 39 millimeters, but significantly thicker at 14.6. The Nomos is a time watch with world timer. I think you can see my mouse if I put it on the screen. Yes, you kind of can if your screen's not too small. So, and sorry, most of the images are going to look this choppy. I had to do some stuff to make the image transparent. The background, I should say. So, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time because I'm lazy. But anyway, the way it works is, so you have your local time on the main center of the dial. This sub dial at the 3 o'clock position, that's your time zone. That's for your understanding of whatever city you're in. And you can see the cities are around the chapter ring, and you rotate those and thus change what that's going to be with the little pusher. The Black Bay Pro is a much more traditional travel GMT format. So you can independently jump the hour hand for your local time, and then you track the second time zone with the orange hand there. The Nomos is driven by their caliber 3202 or the DUW 3202. It's a 42-hour power reserve movement with that beats at 4 hertz. And the Tudor also has a 4 hertz movement. They're using their MT 5652, which is a 70-hour power reserve approximately. So actually, I meant to just put me back so you can see me speaking, but actually be able to look at the watches a little bit. So that's the poll. So this one, not only I've unified closely off of price, I've gone ahead and given you travel watches. That's the theme, as much as there is a theme that I've run with here. And two very different formats. Obviously, the Tudor is what I think of as a very traditional GMT travel watch. It's what a lot of people think of when they think of a travel watch. World timers are almost their own. Actually, I won't say almost. They are their own subclass within this space, and that is obviously what's done here. I thought when this Nomos came out, it was pretty exciting. It isn't like a lot of the usual Nomos in a lot of ways. This Neomatic doesn't have those super long lugs. It's a very, very conventional profile. It's a really clean look to a world timer. Some world timers, it's tough because you've got the cities listed, so they can look very, very cluttered. But the way this was executed with the chapter ring area for the cities, Omega has a pretty clean world timer as well. This is far more affordable than that. Still an expensive watch. And of course, as many people know, I don't really care for subdials cropping our numerals out, Arabic and Roman hour numerals out. And Nomos apparently has that same problem because they've got this overlay. You know, the printing actually appears over the subdial, a very, very different look. And I personally appreciate that they did it like that, because it doesn't look like, oh, well, we designed a dial, then we dropped the subdial in on it. Instead, they had to kind of consider what that would look like with those fully fonted hour markers labeled like they normally would on the other parts of the dial. The Tudor, it's in some ways I really like it because it's impossible not to look at the Black Bay Pro and not get Explorer 2, Rolex Explorer 2 vibes. I own a Rolex Explorer 2. It was my first luxury watch. I still have it. And so this very much plays in that spirit. The 39 millimeter diameter is much closer to the old Explorer 2s, the 16570s and earlier, which that was a 40 millimeter watch. So it's not like the big ones today. Thickness is significant at 14.6 millimeters, very significant. It is like many of the Black Bays, it's I feel fairly slab sided, and it's a bit of a puck. It's not, I would say, overly thick per se. For me, that line is generally crossed once you reach the threshold of 15 millimeters, but it's very, very close. Larger wrist individuals, I think, will be happier with the Tudor. I really am pleased. I know it's hard to read because of the white on the silver of the stainless steel of the bracelet. These are both stainless steel watches. But the thickness of 9.9 on a world timer, that I think is a very impressive move. So for me, it's tough because visually the cleanliness, the more sterile, straightforward approach of the Black Bay Pro appeals to me. It's a very easy to read watch, very quick to look at. I like both of these watches. So let me say that up front. I will go ahead and say my pick here is the Nomos Neomatic, simply because I think it's one of the better looking world timers. There are some aspects to it that I would say I probably like the Tudor Black Bay Pro more, but this is a very easy to read world timer, which is something that's generally not done. I don't like all the font, like the Neomatic font and stuff. There's just some little minor things, but it's a nice handset. It's real easy to read the local time on this. The cities are easy to identify, but they're out of the way, so they're not feeling like they're consuming the entire dial. In fact, there's a tremendous amount of white space. This isn't only available in blue. I just happened to grab the blue one as our example for today. So I'm going to say for me, my pick is the Neomatic, but I definitely have sympathies with the Black Bay Pro because I have a similar watch in my own collection. I own no world timers whatsoever. But while you guys noodle on, the poll is live. So, of course, go ahead and vote. Those of you watching live. Those of you who are not watching live, that's fine. You can always just mention which ones you would pick in your comments. You could do it all in one comment. I only am going to have 4 of them. So I'll go back and read those. But so I'm going to go ahead and pick the Nomos, even though, with the asymmetry going on with just the 2 subdials and they're not balanced out, is it the best looking watch? No, definitely not. But as world timers go, I think they did a pretty good job. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'll stick with it. I'm going to stick with that one, just because I already decided I am. That's the answer. So what do you guys think? Well, first, Koji, thank you for being an INI Club member. Complimented the Zenith on my wrist. Well, thank you. Very kind of you. Brent is picking the Tudor. Let's see. Trap Vision says hello. I say hello back. Koji's about the Tudor going 14.6 millimeters of thickness. Oof, really nice style though. Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm trying to remember what I have you're not going to see it because I'm loading it in my other browser. I use 2 browsers while I do this. Well, actually, we're not in a browser to look at these pictures at all, so I guess I couldn't have gone over there and clicked anyway because these are actually image files that I made with my little paint program, and then I saved them as PNGs so that I could show them to you. What I'm doing behind the scenes is I'm going to the www.watcheswithdennis.com site so that I can load up my review of the Rolex Explorer 2, so I can tell you how thick the old 16570 model is, which this one is the closest thing looking to. 12 millimeters. Okay. That's my measurement with my calipers, 12 millimeters. So, and it's true today that the new bigger Rolex is also thinner than this. So that's one of the things about Tudor is for their design, whatever their design reasons are to accommodate the MT5652. It's a thick watch. It's thick. In fact, of the GMT watches, I think the Black Bay Pro might be the thickest one that they make. I'm not entirely certain of that though. And Brent acknowledges this, that, yeah, the only weakness is the thickness. MCart, welcome to the live stream, by the way, says, choose Nomos because of the unique design and much less thickness. Black Bay Pro is just too thick of a watch. That is a very common complaint with a lot of people. However, I have a friend who owns a Black Bay Pro and really likes it. He also has a larger wrist size, though. Like his wrist size is I think, closer to 8 inches than even 7.5. So not certain of that, but for someone like that, the thickness probably wears pretty well, would be my thinking. I guess I'd have to ask to know if that is indeed true or not. Underachieving says the Nomos dial aesthetics just isn't my bag. Definitely going to be an issue for a lot of people, I think. And let's see. Ken, well, welcome, Ken, to the live stream. Big D, long time. Your structured shows are the best. Pro for me. I have a feeling me picking Nomos is not going to win in this instance, but it's just tough because I think the Explorer 2 is a better wearing experience to the Black Bay Pro. So that's probably poisoned me against it a little bit. But let me go ahead and go. I got to go to a different window because I can't do it through the stream tool. Let me go to my different window here and close the poll so we can find out what the results are. I actually don't see the results on the in my little StreamYard thing. So, and I can't share them there, but I know they appeared in the live chat, so I have to look through the other window. Okay, so with 8 votes in, it's the Tudor with 75% of the vote, and the poor little Neomatic is stuck with 25%. Not a particularly surprising outcome. I haven't heard that they've sold particularly well. I think it's been more. I mean, obviously, Nomos is a bit of a darling brand amongst collectors for a couple of reasons. One, the pricing in the luxury space is much more approachable than many other watches. Their prices have not gone up nearly as much, especially when you consider what you can do if you're into wanting in-house movements, and like that's a priority for you. You can get into in-house movements pretty affordably with them. Granted, you can with Tudor as well. And then, of course, the other aspect is that world timers, there's a lot going on them. And so the cleanliness of the dial is lost on basically every world timer that I've ever seen. You know what would be interesting to see would be Parmigiani Fleurier's interpretation of a world timer under today's design ethos. I almost wonder if it would just be called a world timer and it really wouldn't work. Some of the stuff that they do with some of their watches, they look great, but I'm like, I'm not sure that all the features are really here in the way that would be practical. Surely they'd have to list the cities in some way though, right? Right? Isn't that right? I don't know if that's right or not. But anyway, okay. I'm not surprised by the outcome, but I thought nonetheless interesting. All right. So that one out of the way, I need to get ready to prep a new poll. So I'm starting to paste all that information into my poll tool, the built-in YouTube poll tool, very trusty. But let me go ahead and also get you the screen share with me out of the way. Here's matchup number 2 of 4. So this time I've actually got 3 watches going up against each other. We're going to go ahead and have the Panerai Luminor Marina. This is specifically the PAM 03312. Most of the time I don't include the reference numbers on these TOTs, but I think I think in this case, a lot of the Paneristas need those to be able to tell them apart because I think all the watches look the same pretty much versus 2 watches. So I had to do this for the pricing purpose. So that's why I did it. And again, those who are veterans of the watch tot days won't be surprised by my decision to do this. But I've taken the Oris Big Crown pointer date caliber 403. You see that? I picked the pink dial, salmon dial, however you want to think of it. I think it's more pink than salmon version. This is the one with the caliber 403 because they also came out this year with some that are using the Solita base movement. But I need this one for the higher price. Plus, it's the one with the small seconds, so you can tell them apart from the other ones, which have central seconds. And then I also went with a brand I've never owned, Raymond Weil, the Freelancer. I know it's kind of hard to read. Freelancer Complete Calendar. So you can see very much, I think, what you would say is a JLC Master Control looking style watch. Now, both of these watches are stainless steel. There's a rose gold PVD color on the Raymond Weil. But in terms of specifications, here is your matchup. So the PAM 03312 is $9,200, whereas the Oris is $4,500 currently on their website, and the Raymond is $4,195. So I've got $9,200 against about $8,700. So I think I got it pretty close. Diameter of the Panerai, what a shock, huge. It's 44 millimeters with a thickness of 13.7. I want to note that even though this is a 500-meter water-resistant watch, it is still significantly thinner than the Tudor Black Bay Pro. Whereas the sizing, of course, is different between the 2 matchups that I've given you. The Oris is a 40 millimeter in diameter watch, and so is the Raymond Weil. The Oris is 12 millimeters thick. The Raymond is 10.15. The Oris is only 50 meters water resistance. The Raymond is 100. The watches are time, they're time plus date for the Oris and the Panerai. The Raymond Weil is time plus complete calendar. So it's date, but you see it's also got a moon phase. It's got the moon phase, it's got the day, it's got the month, and it's got the date. So that's why it's a complete calendar. So in terms of what drives these watches, the Panerai is using the P980. That's a 72-hour power reserve movement, so quite a long power reserve. It does beat at 4 hertz. All these movements are 4 hertz. The Oris is using their caliber 403, as the name would suggest. That's their 120-hour power reserve movement. So there's a lot more juice in these 403 driven Oruses than their Salida base models. And then the RW3281, I believe that is a platform on the SW300. So the Salida movement serves as the true base, but it's got their, these modules attached to it. 56 hours of power reserve on that particular one. So, okay, here you go. This one's sort of interesting because obviously you're getting a much more significant luxury watch if you go with the Panerai. Significant in a couple of ways. One, it's literally significant. It's huge. But also, you would expect higher fit finish. I've handled Panerais. I've not handled this Panerai. But you would expect better fit finish, and just luxury quality, given that you're near five figures with the Panerai. That being said, the Raymond Vial is a very classical looking dress watch aesthetic at a very approachable price point, especially, obviously because it's steel, but the PVD will give you a gold look. So if you've been into like that JLC master control look, there used to be some Carl F. Bookerers in gold that had this look, some of the older ones. It's sort of a go-to complete calendar dress watch look, but in a relatively approachable price point. It's still over $4,000 though. So I think the having to accept PVD, understandable at under five figures that you're not going to get a solid gold watch. Nonetheless, it's not like a $400 watch. So I think that's going to be a bit of a rub for people. It's going to be more, I think, about whether or not you really want those complete calendar aspects in that overall package. The Oris, having have owned Orises, that one is you're going to get more of a tool watch vibe. Of course, you will out of the Panerai, but there'll be less refinement, less finish. The caliber 403 it's a workhorse caliber. Like the power reserve is really impressive. The accuracy of the one I had was very nice. However, the finishing on it isn't particularly impressive. I don't recall if this has a display case back or not. Doesn't really matter one way or the other. Pointer date in this case. And I do think the look is pretty nice with the Arabic font that Oris likes to use around the hour markers, coupled with doing it like the small seconds. I think the central seconds versions also actually look pretty good, but it's a very well balanced looking watch. And, I feel Oris very much owns the pointer date space, especially in the, sub $5,000 range. They're kind of the brand that people think of. So I'm struggling with this one a little bit because if I was to take price out of it entirely, I would say I would want to own the Oris. I don't want the Raymond Vial but for me, I've already got dress watches. Like if I wanted this look, I don't want it in PVD. I would want to get the JLC instead. The Panerai, I don't think I could wear the Panerai is the problem. It's so big, but aesthetically, I actually think this looks pretty good. Like I like the way the case brushing looks. They feel nice and substantial in the hand. I think this is pretty well balanced in terms of you've got the small seconds over at the 9 o'clock position, which is other Panerais do this, but it's a fairly creative placement that most brands won't do. But it allows them to provide balance against the date wheel, which is over at the traditional 3 o'clock position. I'm much more in the Radiomir space personally on the Panerais than the Luminors, but the Luminors have grown on me over time in terms of like the idea with the crown guard and the cover and all of that. Like it's a very Panerai look. So like if I was to rank the watches in terms of me personally wanting to own them, money aside, I would say Oris, Panerai, then the Freelancer. But for this sort of money, I'm really torn on if I feel the Raymond Vial's worth $4,200. I will say, with my experience with Oris, I would never pay $4,500 for the big crown pointer date. I would need this at least 25% off. Panerai, I would also expect a discount on too, but I think even though I'm not sure I can pull it off, I'm going to say my vote is Panerai on this. I don't know. It's such a unique look. I would probably rather go with a pointer date Salida driven Oris when push comes to shove, even though I do like the dial configuration. And I think this colorway works pretty well. And then the Raymond Vial, I respect that what it looks like, but it's so much of an homage to JLC. That's all I see when I see it. It's nice that it's in a more affordable way for people to get into that look, definitely, but it would never be something I would buy. So I guess my vote's going to be Panerai. And we'll see what you guys think. But first, I'm going to get caught up with the chat. So back on the previous topic where we were looking at a world timer versus a travel GMT watch, Underachieving says Chopard makes a great world timer. I have seen it, but it's not popping up in my head currently. Ken notes that less is more for watches. So I'm guessing Ken would probably vote the Panerai in this matchup, but I could be wrong. MCart says Pam for me. In those other two, I have no interest. Okay, so kind of a much more succinct and not a long-winded way of saying what I ended up spending like 5 minutes trying to articulate. I like this, but do I love it enough to get it? No, not really. All right, so that makes sense. Underachieving says this choice is simply how you want to burn money. Well, sure, but it's going to get worse dollar-wise. It's going to get worse, guys. So if you thought these were expensive, just wait until the next couple of matchups. The last two matchups are due. Actually, the last one's not as bad as the first. Spoiler: the last one's the thumbnail, so that one won't be too much of a surprise for you. MCart says I have a Luminor Marina in 40 millimeter on stainless steel bracelet, stripped value. Oh, I think he meant striped value movement. Great watch. Okay, cool. Yeah, I handled I think I've told this story before, but I'll share it again. I realize I'm not on the screen, which I didn't want to be originally, so you could see all the stats. But I think you all have had a chance to read them now. Story time. It's stories with Dennis right now. I've shared this before, I know, on a live stream, but last time I was in Dallas, last year when I was in Dallas, so in 2024, I went to the Panerai boutique. I was checking out some other boutiques in one of their watch district areas, and they had a Panerai one there. And since I had enough time, I went ahead and stopped in, and they were very nice. I mean, it was like the less popular the brand, the nicer they were. Like AP were friendly, but just professionally friendly. Like, and Vacheron were significantly nicer. Panerai were even nicer than Vacheron. But anyway, I had them get out a watch. It was one of the 47 millimeters. You see, this one here's 44. It's a 47 millimeter, and it was so it was so funny to me because I went and looked at I'm looking at all these, and I had them get out this 47 one, and I put it on, and you can tell it doesn't work. It is, and they're being so polite, and they're just like, maybe you would like to try on one of our 38 millimeter models. and I just looked and I said, this looks like I'm a kid trying to wear my dad's watch. And in the reflection of one of the the mirrors they have, so you can see what the watch looks like on your wrist without looking straight on, I could see the security guard at the door started to laugh. So I still have some jokes, guys. I still have some, but it did. I felt like I was 5 trying to wear my dad's clothes or something. It did not work. Let's see. Scotty says the poll is flawed. I want to change my vote to Panerai. I'm sorry. There's no takesy backsies. That's the rule of the Watch Tot. It's the standard Watch Tot rule. Actually, I think it's a YouTube poll rule. I don't know if you can go in and I'm taking a quick look. I don't think so. No, I don't see an option, at least that I can tell. And let's see. And Koji asks, are we going to get a classic Dennis rant before the year is over? Maybe. What I've thought about doing is asking the 99-cent club members again if any of them want to do a submission for roasts. I haven't done a watch roast, I think, in over a year, and I could go ahead and do that. Despite the disclaimer I put on them, I will still get people, because it's YouTube, I will still get people who think I'm being serious and actually get upset that I made fun of watches. But maybe something like that. In terms of a rant, possibly. Last week was sort of a pseudo rant live stream, but I wasn't very happy with it. It's too hard to be critical of watch shows because I don't really know who's putting it all together. And Dubai's one was so different anyway in so many things that it becomes very difficult. Koji says, combine it with Festivus airing of grievances. That's true. I could unify under the Festivus approach. So anyway, I picked Panerai, but let's go ahead and see what you all ended up picking, ending the poll. And all right, the results are in, and Panerai won this time, so I am with you all at 71% of the vote. and the Oris and Freelancer ended up with 29%. Okay, so yeah, that one doesn't surprise me. I figured Panerai, I know Panerai's been on the struggle bus lately in terms of, all the watches look the same. People aren't buying them. Ever since the whole scandal with the in-house that wasn't really in-house, I feel like they've had some baggage, but I don't really think that I don't. Sorry, I'm looking at. I realize I misspelled something. The I don't think that it was really the movement issue that was frustrating. I think the big thing that actually turned people on Panerai was when Panerai Instagram started to share clones. Like they couldn't tell the fakes from their own watches. And again, I get it. It's distanced, but it's a bad look when like super fakes, and they're not all that super, quite frankly, end up getting shared on official Panerai channels because their watches were so easy to clone. Have they pivoted from that? I don't know. They play with materials and stuff, kind of like Hublot, but they don't have the baggage Hublot does. Granted, all that baggage seems to be from Nico, because I don't really know people that I have never. Let me put it this way: I don't think I've met a single person who's owned a Hublot that told me it was a terrible watch. But I also don't know very many people who seem to own them. So I don't know. What am I saying? Who knows? Who cares? Let's go ahead and jump to the third top. That is what people want to know about. That is what they care about. Now, this one's actually going to be the most expensive matchup of the day. Let me get my head out of the way. Here you go. I did not put the name of the brand on the one on the left, I realize, and it's too late to go back now. So I'll tell you, it is Parmigiani Fleurier. Pretty obvious if you have ever seen anything of their watches in recent memory. But this is their Toric Quantime. Sorry, French is not actually even English is not my strong suit. We'll just say Toric Perpetual. So we've got the Parmigiani Toric Professional against a Patek Philippe Calatrava, but not just any Calatrava. This is the 5328G-001. Okay. Pricing, fairly big spread here, but there are two different strategies kind of going on with these watches. But these are kind of complicated date watches is the way I'm going to describe them. So 96,900 on the Parmigiani. The Patek is $85,356. These are the current prices that I could find. So we do have about a $10,000 spread between the two. The Parmigiani is a 44 millimeter watch, a 13.7 millimeters thick, and 500 meters of water resistance. That cannot be right. That has to be an error. Like 500 meters. What in the world is? Now you're going to hear the clicking of my. The thing is, I'm using the same template over and over and over in order to try and produce these. It still takes over an hour just to make these graphics, and I only did 4 of them. But I'm like, there is no way. All right, I apologize because I clearly that was the carryover from the Panerai. So ignore this part that I'm circling on the screen. This is not 500 meters. It's 30, like you would expect out of a perpetual calendar. So I apologize for the error, but that is 30 meters of water resistance. It is a perpetual calendar watch. It's driven by the PF733, which is a 60-hour power reserve movement that does beat at 4 hertz. The Patek also beats at 4 hertz, but has a much longer power reserve, 192 hours. I believe this is the watch they advertise as the 8-day power reserve. This is not actually a perpetual calendar, however. This is a day date. So you can kind of see over here that you've got the date. There's a pointer date, and then the day appears in a disc at the 6 o'clock subdial. And then there's also a power reserve indicator, though, up here towards the top of the watch. So, okay. And in terms of the, I clicked the wrong button. In terms of the specifications on the Patek, it's smaller. So it's 41 millimeters, not 44. I'm wondering, you know what? I bet my whole sizing is wrong on that Parmigiani. I bet I accidentally left all of the Panerai sizing in place. Yes, I did. Okay. Now I really wish I could edit it. So I'm just gonna have to describe it to you. Okay. The Patek is 41. I properly carried those over. The toric is 40.6. So they're almost the same diameter. The toric is a little smaller. The toric is not 13.7 millimeters thick. It's 10.9. So it's a little thicker than the Panerai, or excuse me, oh my, all these P names, than the Patek, which is 10.52, and then the 30 meters water resistance for both. So, okay. So they're both under 11 millimeters in thickness. They're both under 40. They're at 41 or just under 41 millimeters in diameter, and they're both only 30 meters of water resistance. I very much apologize. This is the right photo. This is the right picture of the toric. They actually do have a perpetual in platinum. I had to go with gold because the price differential is just so extreme at the point that we actually reach the platinum casework for that particular watch. In terms of the Patek, this is white gold. That's why. Otherwise, if it had been platinum, then I think I would have had to go with the platinum toric just to keep it somewhat similar on pricing. So anyway, again, apologies for the tot errors. Tots are like French fries. When you put them in the air fryer, they come out different ways sometimes, and mistakes happen. But what isn't a mistake is the pull. So between these two, which one would you pick? Obviously, it's more expensive to get the toric because the toric is a true perpetual calendar. You can hopefully make out here in the screen. You've got whether or not it's the leap year is conveyed in the 3 o'clock subdial. That also tells you what month it is. And then you have the day of the week and the date over in the 9 o'clock subdial. They're actually a little bit lower on the subdials than being right there even across it. It's a very interesting look. I actually really like the way this Parmigiani dial looks, but they're still leaning very much into how Parmigiani's dial looks in general. This very, very clean, austere, simple style approach, but doing a fairly complicated watch. And it does actually have all the key features, I think, that one would want to be able to see on the dial of the perpetual calendar. The Calatrava, actually, though, very interesting pebbled texture to the dial, very easy to read numerals. The Calatrava is a weird series of watches because I feel like this version is like they have the dress watch version, which I honestly like more, and then they have this, which is like the pilot line. Like they have these Calatravas that feel like they're pilot watches. But if you're into that, you might really like this. The syringe handset, the date, the day and the date are all in the same positioning, but I think pretty creatively executed so that you can see all of that. And then the 8 days of power reserve is incredibly impressive. There's nothing particularly interesting. The finishing is great, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing particularly interesting about the perpetual calendar's movement aside from it that it is a perpetual calendar. The Calatrava having 8 days of power reserve is pretty interesting. And if you don't care about perpetual calendars, this sort of setup with it being a day date it's going to meet most people's needs. For me, though, bottom line is I think the toric is a far more attractive watch. When you look at this, and I get it because it's white gold, it's the stealth metal, it's the stealth precious metal, but it's done up so much. Like I've never really understood the pilot watch look being in the Calatrava line in general. I'm saying that aside, but nonetheless, this looks like a much more affordable watch than it actually is, in part because it's gold, but mostly because it says it's Patek. And I think you're paying a lot for the 8-day power reserve, which for a watch collector, maybe at 8 days, honestly, you could have this in your rotation and you really wouldn't have to have it on a winder. That is a pretty long reserve. So as long as your collection is like 7 or less watches, I think you're going to be good to go. But for someone like me, I'd still have it run down. So I'd never really appreciate it. I didn't like the historic torics. I didn't like the Javelin handset and such that they have. The new torics that are coming out, I really like. Now, bottom line, I'd rather have a more simple time only or time plus date toric than a perpetual. This is a really clean looking perpetual. And I like almost everything about the watch. I'm not sure about the strap. I've never handled it. But I think it suits this colorway well. And so for me, it's a pretty easy answer. I would go ahead and go with the toric. All right. So let me go ahead and see what you guys happen to say. Back on the prior discussion, Brent did weigh in that his pick would be the Panerai, but that pricing is their biggest issue, a common problem with a lot of brands. JLC has that problem nowadays. Brent says, not into dress watches, but he prefers the Patek. That could be because you're not into dress watches. And this is very much a Calatrava, but in that pilot line. Like they got different flavors of Calatrava. It's kind of, I don't know why they don't call them different lines. Kind of like, I mean, they did Cubitus, and it's it's a twist on the Nautilus. I don't think it should be called Nautilus. They were right to call it Cubitus, but they have stuff in the Calatrava line. It's like, if it's not a simple dress watch, I don't think it should be a Calatrava. You just call it something else. Just make a new line. Because they also got the one with the denim looking straps that I don't know if they feel like the pilot ones. I'd have to go back and look, but they don't feel like dress watches. Koji saying, yeah, 500 meters water resistance in their dreams, in my dreams, about the perfect watch. I'm just trying to imagine someone with Parmigiani explaining this perpetual calendar, and then especially ignore the 13.7, but actually having the under 11 millimeters thickness. They're going, oh yeah, by the way, it's also 500 meters water resistant. It would be. I mean, I don't know. Is there a market, guys? Is there a market to blend like the ultra spec I'm worried about water on my watch? I want 200 meters minimum because I'm afraid of rain, combined with a dress watch aesthetic. Like, I want 300-meter Calatrava, like that sort of thing. Is there a market for that? Something tells me no, there absolutely is not. But now, with my errors in how I write up images, I wonder if there is indeed such a market, or maybe we could make such a market. Brent acknowledges that the Calatrava is the sportier of the two, is probably why he prefers it. I would completely agree. How thick is the Patek with that ridiculous PR? This the Patek specs are right. I just, for whatever reason, I thought I had updated the diameter line. These are all, I don't know if anyone cares, but I'll share. So the way this works is, when I go into an image program, I'm using text overlays. I do 4 overlays. There's one here, 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 here. So each quadrant is an overlay. So when I'm going in, I'm just editing it like a word processor. So I thought I had edited the diameter line, that I had not, but I had gone down and changed the third line. The Patek was its own text box, and I made sure I did it. I had to resize it because you see the font smaller on the Patek one. It's because the caliber name was so long, I had to shrink the font so that it didn't drop off the screen. But it is indeed 10.52. That's what Patek's website said. So I guess it's indeed what Patek says their thickness is. And so Koji notes around 11 millimeters, most impressive. Yes. So this one is basically, the Patek is 10.5 millimeters, and then the toric is just under 11. Is how it is. So yes. Cloud Ken says he would pick Patek for the watch plus the journey. That is another thing that I wanted to mention and I completely blanked on. And so again, the pricing is right on both of these. I guess actually, I think you can see it even. My head is here. Yes, you can. Okay, so bear in mind that this toric will probably, like, in terms of value retention, I was going to say fall like a stone. I don't know, because I've not been pricing these. The toric non-perpetuals have gone down a bit, but I wouldn't necessarily say falling like a stone. The Patek, though, will probably retain higher. So if you were to go secondhand, even if you don't care about value retention, I want you to think about it from this angle. I'm showing you MSRPs. If you wanted a toric, it probably can be had for less than the Calatrava. So if you're also, though, worried about if you were to buy the watch and maybe didn't want to keep it and you wanted to get rid of it later and you wanted to trade it, and you're buying new, the Calatrava might get you more mileage if you end up being unsure if you like the watch or not. So that's a thing that you might want to also consider. Like, the Patek's going to be easier to get rid of, and it will retain better. I'm not going to say that it will go up in value. I don't know that this Calatrava is that popular, but it should retain better, because that's what the brand name pulls. It's just the way it works. So, but also the journey. Yeah, if you're into Patek, there's a path you can go. If you're into Parmigiani, I think you can just go and buy it. Like, I don't know if there's any like Halo Parmigiani stuff that you have to play games to get, or work your way through the catalog. Like, they're not like all Longenzoner or anything. Where that's, the dress watches are approachable. The steel stuff is hard. That sort of thing. Brent notes that it's nuts that it's under 11 millimeters. Again, the watchmaking, Parmigiani, even before the current generation, Parmigiani's watchmaking has always been incredible. But Michel Parmigiani, that's what he made his name at, was restorations of classic things. So he has a lot of movement expertise. I don't believe he's working anymore at this Koji says, weird choice for Patek to use syringe hands. You would think so, but not on the pilot style Calatravas. It's actually a common handset that they've turned to. Imcart says, if you gave me 2 of these Parmesanis, I would probably choose. Yeah, if you gave me 2 of these Parmesanis, I would probably choose Patek. Brent notes, Toric also looks very hard to read the time. That their design language of being really simplistic, that's something I've run into on some of their other watches. Like they have a GMT, like a travel watch, but you can't even tell where in the 24-hour cycle that other time zone is because they refuse to compromise on the elegance of the watch, but that means the practicality of the use of the watch has to be compromised. You couldn't have both. So that, and again, the Patek is not compromising on the idea of the legibility. It's trying to accomplish the mission as it sees fit that it needs to be done for what the purpose of the watch is. So I would agree with you, Brent. It probably is relatively hard to read some of these aspects, both the subdials because of the sizing of them and the multiple items being indicated. Both of these subdials have 2 hands, so there's a lot to read and there's a lot of white space on the Toric. But it's all done to maintain the balance that they choose to seek. I'm usually okay with watches that just have hour markers. It's like when Moser does that, I'm okay. When Moser gets rid of the hour markers, that's when it's a line too far for me because it's a little too creative to try and read the time. But that's a me issue. Koji says 500-meter water resistance. That for that one James Bond scene when the car turned into a sub underwater. I forget which Brosnan movie had that. I don't remember the sub one with the car that he had either. It wasn't Die Another Day, I don't believe, was it? That's the one where he had to get away from the ice palace. Was that with the car that turned invisible? Was that car also a sub? Because they were out in the water. Was it maybe that one? It wasn't Goldeneye. Definitely wasn't Goldeneye. But nonetheless, let me go ahead and end the poll. So I went ahead and picked the Toric because I just like the aesthetic of it better. But I am wrong. According to you all, 82% of you say the Calatrava is indeed the right answer. It should have been that, not this. Well, but that's why we play the game, is to figure out if that is indeed the case. Brent notes that he thought it was a Roger Moore movie of the car submarine. I thought there was one as well, but there may be a Pierce Brosnan one. Since Koji said Pierce, I'm figuring they both did it. But I swear I remember a Roger Moore one also having one. So, and that's what Brent goes ahead and notes. Yes, maybe that is indeed the case. Koji says, you're right. It was the Roger Moore one. Sorry. Or maybe there wasn't the Pierce one at all. Watchdog Podcast. Welcome to the live stream. Toric looks quite feminine to me, but that isn't always a deal killer, but turns me off on this. Totally understandable. That is probably because it is the rose gold version that I picked. I actually tend to like rose gold in dress style watches. It is a more feminine look, but I like the softer look for dress watches. So personally, I tend to prefer that too. Depends on the shape of the watch. Like yellow gold, if the watch is smaller, I tend to like yellow gold. I also tend to like yellow gold if you're going rectangular, but that Toric is available in white with platinum. So you can actually get it with a much, I would say, more masculine colorway than what I showed you. The reason why I picked the pink one in this case, pink gold or yellow, or I don't know if they call it rose gold or pink. Different brands call it different things. The reason I picked it actually wasn't a personal preference. I needed the cheaper price to keep it close to the Patek, so I couldn't go with the platinum. I had to go with the yellow, or excuse me, I had to go with the gold, and that was the first one that showed up. So hence that is I guess the sausage making behind how some of the, like, why did I pick the blue Nomos Neomatic? The reason I picked the blue one is I thought more of you might actually like the blue one. That's why I picked it. Most of the images are the one that I see online are the ones that are the gray one. I'm actually putting together the last poll for the last watch tot. Hopefully I don't have errors on this one, but I made them in the order we're looking at them. So by this point, I was so tired trying to glue all this stuff again that it has been very challenging. But here it is. Here is your titular matchup. This is the one that I used on the cover screen. The IWC Igeneur Automatic 42 in ceramic versus the Zenith Defy Skyline, specifically the chronograph version, which is the 160th anniversary edition. Now, I will note that the Skyline is sold out, according to Zenith's website, but this isn't about what's available. This is the price that we pay when I give you a Watches and Wonders watch tot that is 6 months too late. But nonetheless, I thought you might enjoy this one because what is the matchup here? It's just sporty watches, sporty style watches with two different feature sets, but pricing pretty close together. So going over the specifications, the IWC comes in as the cheaper watch, not too surprising since it's not limited to my knowledge. I'd have to go back and check, but $21,600, whereas the Zenith Defy Skyline is $23,800. I believe the cases on both of these are ceramic. Obviously, you have a rubber strap, as you can see in the image for the Zenith. However, you have the ceramic bracelet when it comes to the Igeneer. These both are 42 millimeter in diameter watches. The Igeneer is thinner. It's 11.6 millimeters, whereas the chronograph, unsurprisingly, is thicker at 12.7. That's still very modest for a chronograph, but right in line with the thickness I have come to associate with Zeniths. And the reason I am wearing my Zenith today is because Zenith is in the matchup, and it's the only thing I had that was in the match. Well, I guess I do have a Patek, but it was the only thing that came to my mind when all right, let me be honest. It's because I wore the Zenith yesterday and I didn't want to get out another watch. So anyway, water resistance is also 100 meters on both of these watches. So they are actually pretty water resistant, which isn't always the case with the chronographs. The Igeneer is just a time plus date watch, so there's really not a lot to talk about there. It's got some nice patterning, I think nice on the dial. And then the Zenith has its own patterning. It's much busier looking dial. Your pretty standard El Primero style look, though, 430 date window, try subdial structure for the chronograph, all of that. So in terms of the movements, the Igeneer is being driven by what is called the caliber 82110. So that is a 4 hertz movement. Actually, today, I do want to go ahead and point out every single movement I have picked happened to be 4 hertz, which surprised me a little bit, but it's just the way it ended up working out. So it's a 60-hour power reserve, and of course, as I noted, the 4 hertz movement. I'm checking because I want to be sure I picked. Now I'm wondering if I made a mistake on the Zenith in terms of, did I write down the? I think I may have, but I'm so paranoid now that I'm on their website, but their website's very, very slow. So I'm trying to pull it up if this indeed is what I'm thinking it is, but almost there. So their movement, did I get it down right? It just says El Primero. Okay. Not sure if this is the specific caliber. The J is what's throwing me. That sounds like another brand's movement. Anyway, it's chronograph movement. I guess we'll just put it like that. Okay, no, it's definitely, nope, that's not the right movement. I think this is just a 3600. I think and it's not a 4 hertz movement. I'm like, wait a moment, this is Zenith. What am I talking about? There's no way this is 4 hertz. It's 5. It's got to be 5. Gosh, I do very much apologize, guys, but I thought that stuff scrolls when I'm editing it, and again, it's not a word processor, so it's an image file. So that caliber is that is the movement from the Patek. That's what the J was. That's their 8-day. So no, this is the El Primero 3600. I'm sure it is, looking at the 60-hour power reserve, 5 hertz movement. And so that's why that second hand will whip around the dial once every 10. It's the same movement as in this watch. So I do apologize. I've moved my picture over there to hide my shame, but we just have to live with it at this point. Okay, so caliber wise, no. What you need to bear in mind is you both have the same power reserve. They're both 60 hours. The difference is the Zenith will give you 5 hertz so that you have 10th of a second accuracy on the chronograph. So ignore the caliber. The caliber, I'm not seeing it on the website, but I'm sure it's the El Primero 3600 is the name of that caliber. So, okay. So that error aside, I think everything else is right. I probably misspelled some stuff too. But so this one's sort of tough for me. So I do like Zenith chronographs. I don't care for the look in the Defy line. Like this blue, I'm sure in person in particular is going to look very sharp. This image is straight up from their website. That's why you see that this gray shadowing on the right is how they have their transparencies work. Tudors are the same way, but don't look quite so ugly. So this, I'm sure, looks very, very nice in person in terms of the case work. I but the dial doesn't really work for me. I like the movement. I love the tenth of a second accuracy. I think it's a far more interesting mechanical creation than the Igener. But I actually think the Igener looks really good. We talked a little bit ago with Watchdog Podcast mentioning the concern about like the toric and in the rose gold, how feminine that watch looks. I think, well, both of these you could argue are very masculine styled watches. The Igener with this design in the black ceramic, I think looks very slick. Especially wondering if I can zoom this image in some. I probably zoomed it in too much, but I could. All right. Sorry for the degradation of the quality, the images, whatever the source was, but you can see this texturing. I actually think this provides a lot of really nice visual interest. And this isn't like a dark on dark on dark, dark side of the moon style thing here. This is a pretty easy to read watch. You can see there are clear minute markers. The hands are quite legible. The seconds hand is the only thing that kind of blends into the dial, and it's the seconds hand. So who really cares? So overall, personally, I think that the Igener is a much nicer looking watch. 21,600 is a lot. Obviously, they're asking you to pay a lot because the whole thing is ceramic, basically. And when the Igeners got relaunched, my real big criticism, this criticism everyone had, was just how expensive they were. It was like they were twice as much as what they honestly should have been, was what everyone's reaction that I heard was. And it's definitely my reaction to this day. So I hate the price. But that being said, I think it's a more interesting watch. There are so many other Zeniths with the 3600 movement that are a lot more approachable, that I think are a better colorway. I'm not a huge fan of blue cases in general. The Zenith Chronomaster Sport, if you want this basic look, but maybe with more of a Daytona vibe. If you don't like the Daytona vibe, there are other Defies. I think the Defy chronographs just look a little weird. So mechanically, the Zenith is the winner far and away. It's a much more interesting movement. I'm perfectly fine with a 430 date window, and I think this dial would look pretty sharp in person. That being said, I prefer the more austere look of the Igener, and I think ceramic is a really good look for the Igener. So that will be my pick. Okay, getting caught up with what you guys are talking about. Back on the topic of James Bond and submarine cars, Spy Who Loved Me is what Brent throws out there. Koji says he was wrong again, not as wrong as my watch taught overlays are, Koji. It was also in the opening scene of The World Is Not Enough. Okay. I don't remember the opening scene of that one. Brent notes that he only remembers stuff from the GoldenEye from the Brosnan era. Well, GoldenEye was here's an interesting thing. It has nothing to do with watches, but I'll throw it out there. Well, no, Bond and watches are a thing, right? He's often associated with watches. It often has seemed to me like the first Bond movie for a Bond is their best Bond. I don't know. Do you guys agree or not? Not true in all cases. Obviously, Lazenby, we can set aside because he only had one movie. I don't know on Dalton if I would say is Living Daylights or License to Kill better. That one, I don't know. License to Kill is so dark. Maybe I would pick Living Daylights. But I think GoldenEye is Pierce's best one. I think Casino Royale is Craig's best one. I think Live and Let Die is Roger Moore's best one. Obviously, Dr. No is objectively not the best one for Sean Connery. But I think for most of the Bonds, you could argue their first Bond movie is their best Bond movie. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. But that's just, again, that one, I don't know. We don't have Bond taught. I don't have a vote for you for Bond taught. What I do have a vote for is for you guys to tell me whether or not you prefer the Zenith with my verbal correction to what the caliber is, or the IWC. I am picking the IWC. Going in and killing off this poll to go ahead and get the results to post. You all say the Igener. This one is our closest one, though. The Igener only won with 67% of the vote, so much more divided audience. Understandable, given that I think both of these watch designs are relatively polarizing. They're not really, neither are the highlight of the catalog for either IWC or Zenith. But those are what I had. So I thought we'd try something different. On retrospect, I should have made my top matchups before I was tired last night, so that I maybe would have made less errors. Though making errors on the narrative is actually very common for me to do on the tops, which is why at least I've gotten good enough at looking at these things where I'll be like, wait a moment, that caliber number doesn't sound like a Zenith number. I should have instantly known when I saw 4 hertz. I should have. I don't know a Zenith chronograph that's not 5. I don't think they make any anymore that aren't for the chronograph portion at least. So we're on James Bond topics now. So before we end the stream, let me go ahead and see what the folks are saying. Brent says so he is in agreement with me. Live and Let Die is Roger Moore's best. I love Live and Let Die. Really, really good movie. And I just rewatched, other than Die Another Day, or not Die Another Day. Sorry. What was the Craig last one? I don't remember. Was it Die Another Day? Whatever the Craig's last one is. Amazon had them all up, but they were about to expire at the end of November. So over Thanksgiving weekend, I watched all but the No Time to Die. No Time. Thank you, Koji. No Time to Die. I did not have time to rewatch that one. I've only seen it once, but I watched all the other ones, and I was like, Casino Royale is so much better than I mean, none of them are really bad. I guess Quantum of Solace is slow, but I'd say all the others are strong movies, but Casino Royale is a really good movie. But let's see. Koji thinks that both of Dalton's were great. I agree. Dalton being a serious Bond was a really interesting take, and I was really surprised that they only ever did 2 films with him. But I enjoyed both of them myself. Let's see. Koji says he prefers Skyfall to Casino Royale, and From Russia with Love to Dr. No. Dr. No is like Connery's worst movie. Like I'm not sure. I'm like right From Russia with Love, I think is generally agreed to be the best one that he did. I know some people, in terms of worst, I think usually Dr. No's worst on the list. I personally prefer Goldfinger to From Russia with Love. So that would be the one I would pick. Now, a lot of people tend to put Diamonds Are Forever fairly low on the list of his as well. But yeah, Dr. No, it's not like the acting per se or anything. It's pretty low budget. They just didn't have it. It was the first one, the first movie they did. They just didn't have the formula in place. And normally that's okay. Like, you can have a really good movie and the formula is what kills it. But I just, nothing really about it stands out to me other than that it's the first Bond movie. So Dr. No is really low on my list. But I guess I'll throw out there for that while we're having this, we're not getting back on watches, guys. So any of you who are still watching for watches can feel free to sign off at any time. What is your guilty pleasure Bond movie? Like, what is the James Bond movie that a lot of people would tell you is bad, but you actually like? Like Moonraker would be one where like it scores really low on a lot of things, from the song to the plot. But maybe one of you guys really likes it. Mine's real easy. It's Roger Moore's last one. Live and Let Die is really good. View to a Kill. I love A View to a Kill. It's actually the first James Bond movie I remember watching, so that's probably part of it. Roger Moore is way too old in that movie to still be James Bond. The whole thing with the plans and the trying to cause an earthquake to flood Silicon Valley is weird. There are other weird plot Bond movies, of course, but you've got Christopher Walken as the villain, so that's really fun. The Zeppelin fight's really fun, and it's the opening song's really good. I mean, I don't know if you like Duran Duran, and I did. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, and I really liked the scene where Roger Moore is evacuating from the burning building, and he's carrying the girl down the ladder off the fire truck. I just thought it was a really, like, I think because it was known it was going to be his last movie, I think maybe they did that on purpose to kind of just have this really sort of cool heroic moment aspect. I don't know. I just really like View to a Kill, but it's definitely on most Bond lists really low, really, really low. So that would be my pick as a guilty pleasure one. Brent says No Time to Die is horrible. That might be why I've not rewatched it. I had a chance. I could have squeezed it in, and I was like, I don't really care. And so I let it go. But I didn't love it. Like, I felt that the plot was a little messy, and they tried to glue in all these other, I get it, because they were doing this really cool story building. Like, how, especially once you got to it was all the way there through from Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, but Skyfall and Spectre, that like those and then No Time to Die, they really tried to build a lot off of it to try, it almost felt like the episode, I don't know if you saw the TV show Lost. this episodic thing where, oh no, we gotta, it's not going to be the movie's sort of standalone and we just have the same character over and over and over. We want to make this like this through line, but I don't know. In some parts with No Time to Die, it felt shoehorned in ways that didn't. I don't know. You already had Spectre where like they always were one step ahead of him, and that was the same in Skyfall. For it to still be happening in No Time to Die, I don't know. It felt a little tired to me at that point. And I know that Daniel Craig was well and truly ready to be done being James Bond. So I'm honestly surprised they did that many movies with him. Koji says, I like the first half of No Time to Die. The second part, no comment. Brent says, Thunderball is probably his favorite Connery. Hey, you can enjoy it twice if you want to go and watch the non-Eon production one with Kim Basinger. What was that one called? Because it's really just, that was a whole rights fight thing, and it's really just Thunderball redone. It's the one where they play the Pain video game at the beginning. And I don't remember the name of it right now. You Only Live Twice, maybe? No, You Only Live Twice is an official Bond. Never Say Never Again. I think Never Say Never Again. That's what it is. Brent says, but I have a bias since it was filmed in the Bahamas. Koji thinks that Thunderball is underrated. I thought Thunderball was pretty well respected, but I'm not sure of that. Maybe it's just that because the rights were so contentious for so long, it's just maybe one of the better known Bonds. Brent mentions A View to a Kill. Koji says Walk-In and Grace Jones. Oh yes, and Grace Jones. I read that she designed all those outfits in it because she's in some, like, her costumes are really out there in all these scenes. But yeah, no, I think that was my first James Bond. It's the one that clicks with me as a kid scene. So Brent says, I love all of Roger Moore's. Roger Moore is my favorite Bond. I won't say he's the best acted. I would say Daniel Craig acted the best as Bond. But again, when I was a kid, real little, like preteen, like Roger Moore was finishing up as Bond. And then, it was still like, I wasn't in high school by the time Dalton was done too. So, but because there was the tongue-in-cheek humor to it. I always think of that aspect because Roger Moore really tried to make it a more fun character than Connery's version. And a lot of people hate that happened, but because it's what I was, I guess, indoctrinated with, it's what I still like. But I've enjoyed them all. Like I enjoyed even Lazenby's stint. It was a good movie. So, Thomas, welcome to Livestream. I love A View to a Kill. Christopher Walken as Zorin was a great villain. It's one of the best villains. While it's not particularly great movie, Man with a Golden Gun with Christopher Lee as Scaramanga. I also really enjoy how he portrayed that character. It doesn't feel like a paint by number villain. And I've heard interviews with Christopher Lee explaining what he tried to do to give that character some more personality versus I think what he was presented with in the script. Brent says, how about what's your favorite Bond opening theme song? Brent says Live and Let Die and Skyfall are his. He's a Man with a Golden Gun fan too. Oh yes. Fun island, the whole island thing in the practice room where you're going through the shooting gallery stuff. All very, very clever in a lot of ways. Favorite opening songs. I don't know how many I get to name. I actually like a lot of James Bond music. The Live and Let Die, really high up there. Goldeneye, I really like the music too. Goldfinger, really like Goldfinger's music. You Know My Name, the opening song for Casino Royale. I actually really like that one. I think a lot of people didn't like that song, but I really enjoy it. I actually have it in my playlist. Then those would be the four that I would open my opening salvo. So did I say Goldeneye? Also Goldeneye with Tina Turner. Yeah, really like Goldeneye also. So I tend to like the more rock ones, but Goldfinger's so well sung. That I forget her name. She did like 4 Bond songs because she did Diamonds Are Forever. She did Moonraker. Like she never sings it anymore because the song's terrible. And Goldfinger. So she at least did 3. I think maybe she has a 4th one also that I don't recall. Thomas says Roger Moore was the Bond he grew up with also. So more comedic as a Bond, tongue-in-cheek, like you say. So yes. All right. Well, we've gone long now, but hey, we got to have some fun that wasn't even watch related. So yay. Hope you guys like the watch this or that, or some of I call them watch tots. Again, apologies for half of them having notable errors. But again, I didn't have AI make the images for me. So I created errors of my own. But I will plan to be back next. I'm trying to think, do I have conflict next Saturday? I don't think so. So I should be back with a live stream. Don't know what the topic will be, of course, because I never do. But I will plan to be on at the same time as usual. That is, I'm not playing any pre-recorded stuff this week unless something strikes my fancy. I'll kick around the idea of maybe doing another watch roast. If you guys want a rant at the end of the year, I guess on this, in addition to weighing in on what picks you have for your watch tots, go ahead and say what you'd like a rant topic to be on, and I can try and whip something together later in the month of December. But that's it for now. And I hope you all have a really good weekend, and I'll talk to you all on the next one. Take care, everybody.